Hey, how y'all doing? Good morning. Thank you, Tim, for allowing me to be here. And appreciate everybody who showed up. Today we will be speaking on our community discussion on the war on drugs and the Vigil for Freedom and Racial Justice. This Vigil for Freedom and Racial Justice is made up of a broad coalition of North Carolinians calling for justice, fairness, and second chances for people incarcerated in our prisons, in our state prisons, especially Black people and other people of color. The campaign is in its third year and is partially focused on a small, regular rotating group of people and organizations standing visual at the governor's mansion, since our primary demand is that Roy Cooper exercises clemency power. That's one of the things that we're holding vigil. It's a coalition of individuals, and for 3 years we've been doing this. For the past 2 years, I've been doing it with them. I haven't had a chance yet to get up there to be able to participate this year, but I would definitely make sure I do. As part of the visual, this year we are hosting a series of community conversations featuring North Carolina-based advocates fighting for freedom and racial justice in our state, and educating their community on the ongoing harms of our modern day carceral system. Sorry, y'all. I know y'all can tell I'm reading this from something, so please bear with me right now. And I wear glasses and I don't got them on, so I'm kind of all over the place today, man. It's the end of the year, and I'm actually on vacation, but I'm here with y'all today. I'm supposed to be taking time out for myself, but it's kind of bored when you ain't on the front lines fighting. It really is. I don't know what to do with myself some days, so I participate, continue to fight. Today's conversation is about the war on drugs. During last year's visual, the coalition highlighted the history of the war on drugs and its remains and its remnants that are codified in the state law. Today, we will discuss federal and state efforts to end the war on drugs. And my purpose, me personally, because I've been affected on both ends. I've been released from prison in 2019. And I'm sorry, y'all, I'm Daquan Peters. I'm New Hanover County Second Chance Alliance Coordinator and organizer for Forward Justice. I apologize for not introducing myself from the beginning. And yeah, I'm a directly impacted, formerly incarcerated individual. In 2007, I was arrested for distribution of crack cocaine. I was sentenced in 2008 in the Federal Bureau of Prisons to 262 months for distribution of crack cocaine. I received the First Step Act in 2018, when Donald Trump signed the First Step Act in 2018. It made the 18-1, which President Obama signed into law in 2010, fully retroactive for those that were incarcerated, still incarcerated under the 100-1 crack cocaine ratio, which is one of the main remnants of the war on drugs that completely decimated our community. With the 5 grams or more, that's what I was sentenced to, 5 grams or more of crack cocaine. But because I had prior felony convictions, I was sentenced as a career criminal and with an 851 enhancement attached along to that, which means that I had a prior felony drug conviction, which increased my enhancements. I'm at my mandatory minimum and my guidelines. So that's one of the main reasons why I am so adamant and so passionate about ending the war on drugs and continue to fight this fight with y'all. Which of these aspects, Tim, do you go back to you?
Yeah, I can go ahead and introduce these. So we have some polling questions we want to ask our participants. I'm going to launch this. Go ahead and launch this right now. But this will kind of gauge your our familiarity with what you know about when it comes to this conversation. So feel free to please answer those. We have questions about the 1994 crime bill, the SNAP felony ban, and the North Carolina drug tax. Please let me know if you can see that pop up, and please feel free to answer that. I'm gonna go ahead and close this poll in about 20 seconds or so. So feel free to get those answers in. And this will kind of help kind of guide that discussion on what people know about and what people don't know about. And that's what this conversation is about, kind of educating and getting that information out there. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll, and I'm going to show the results. So it looks like when it comes to the 1994 crime bill, some people have heard of it, but maybe some people aren't super familiar with it. SNAP felony ban seems to be kind of across the board, with some unfamiliar and some familiar, and I think for the North Carolina drug tax. I'll throw that back to you, Daquan.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. And see, that's the purpose of this conversation, is because each one of these aspects and things that we'll be discussing today, when you think about it, that's not a person. If you're from the Black community, there's not a person that you don't know in your community, or someone who does know or has not been affected by either one of the 1994 crime bill. Encompass every one of these, the SNAP ban. You got a whole bunch of a host of things that just tore our community apart with the war on drugs. And that 1994 crime bill itself is just why the prison system, the federal prison system, increased and it shot up to millions of people. Today we got our sister Muffin on here. She will be speaking on the efforts to repeal the federal 1994 crime bill. How you doing today, sis?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm thankful. Hope you are.
I am. Sorry I'm not on camera right now, but I got my times mixed up, so I'm actually driving at this moment. So
no problem. We
I got my camera on.
Say busy people understand busy people. That's what Mr. Frank Roberts would say.
Yep, you're right. You're right. But my name is Andrea Hudson. Everybody calls me Muffin. I'm the director of the North Carolina Community Bail Fund, which was the first bail fund started in North Carolina. I also do participatory defense. And with doing participatory defense, we saved over 1,000 years in North Carolina. I sit on the slew of boards of organizations, but my goal is to end money bail and mass incarceration. And so the 94 crime bill definitely helped with mass incarceration of Black men and women across the country. And it was enacted, and it was passed and pushed by our current president, Joe Biden. And when Joe Biden did this, he did it under having people be in fear of crack and Black people as a whole. So what we're doing now, it's a coalition of us. We're with the People's Process, where we did poly-eds, where we were educating folks on the impacts of the 94 crime bill on our communities that it did back in 1994. And here it is in 2022, and we still are feeling those effects of the 94 crime bill. And since Biden is our president now, this would be the perfect time to, make him atone for the things he did with doing that 94 crime bill. And so what we did with the political educations, we got a group of folks who were directly impacted, who were not impacted. And like Brother Daquan said, people who knew someone in their community who were affected by that 94 crime bill. There are 5-star generals out in this world for the 94 crime bill, for that war on drugs, right? Daquan being one of those 5-star generals. When you look at it that way, of all the time that was given for crack cocaine. But with those political educations, we had an assembly of folks coming together, and what we got language and what people would like to see in legislation to repeal the 94 crime bill. And so right now we're in the drafting process, and that's across the country. We have coalitions in North Carolina, Tennessee, New York, Texas, California, Washington, Chicago, all across the country, to try to pass, not try, because we're going to pass it, but what we're trying to do is draft it and make sure that the language and the verbiage is accommodating to folks who are directly impacted. And when I say we all are directly impacted, when we say directly impacted here in North Carolina with our coalition, we mean people who actually did time because of the 94 crime bill, or they were held in prison because of the 94 crime bill, because not only did it lock people up, it held people in prison with the 3 strikes and things like that. It held people who were in prison where they weren't able to get out. And so we had done changes on that. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing right now, is we're making sure that people know about this. And because a lot of people voted on the 94 crime bill because they were in fear. They had no idea what was really going on. They were just in fear, and they voted on it and passed it. And now that people are educated and knowledgeable now, we don't want them to be fearful. We want them to vote for legislation to counteract that with releasing folks who are still incarcerated because of the 94 crime bill. We want folks who are not able to get Pell Grants and SNAP benefits to be able to get those things now, because there's legislation around everything else. Why shouldn't there be legislation around repealing the 94 crime bill?
And that's a fact, because when I think about it, again, you know, that's one of the things that's in the first in the North Carolina Second Chance Act, is one of the charges that's a person can't get expunged off of their record in the state of North Carolina is a possession with intent to sell and deliver of cocaine, heroin, or some stuff, you know, with a possession with intent to sell and deliver. And when you think about it, a lot of those people back from the early 90s, from 1990, 89, 87, on back up until the 94s and the 95s, were young Black African-American men that were getting incarcerated and locked up for crack cocaine. Now, when you fast forward that in the state of North Carolina, there is, you don't get a maximum term of imprisonment because of the way the structured sentence is. So how it coincides with the federal sentencing laws and how they merge the two to be able to give people that look like me more time for minor drug offenses, for low-level drug offenses. Everything is entwined with the war on drugs, all the way back to the Marijuana Act, all the way back to the Harrison Act, all the way back, all the way up. All of these laws were created. First, I like to speak about the COINTELPRO and Iran-Contra, things like that right there, because if you're going to speak about the war on drugs, you got to think about how the drugs got in the community, in our community, the way they did, and the purpose of those drugs being in our community, and why were we the chosen people for those drugs to be forced on and put in there? Because of the conditions we were living in, for one, and because a lot of us were desperate, for two. A lot of us like to do things to self-medicate, a lot of that, and these people knew that. So they put these drugs in our community to fund the whole war in another country. And then they came back and created laws to be able to continue to suppress us, to be able to continue to incarcerate us and enslave us. And that's why a lot of people don't know about the SNAP benefits until you have been directly impacted by the laws. Until you go and live with your mother. They created laws in 1994 crime bill, created laws where if you lived in the projects with your mother, which many of us were 16 and 17-year-old kids selling drugs, juveniles. We were living in the projects with our parents, but if we caught a crack charge, our parents got put out, or they had to take us off the lease. And then they created trespassing laws where we couldn't even go back into the projects to even visit our parents. If we crossed over to Wilmington Housing Authority property, we went to jail for trespassing, for just visiting our parents. These are the things that the war on drugs did, and then they used the media to be able to spew mass propaganda, to be able to get the public to be fearful of crack dealers, crack people that's on crack, and they dehumanized us, and they did everything in the book. And now, you know, we want to discuss this snap ban. We want to be talking to my brother Brent Bailey, who's championing this campaign on federal snap ban. Could you please introduce yourself, brother?
Yeah, I'm Brent Bailey. I'm the coordinator of the Second Chance Alliance chapter out in Buncombe County, or Asheville, North Carolina. And as Daquan was saying, I just want to kind of focus on that SNAP felony ban. SNAP being the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, most commonly known as food stamps. So kind of right following that 94 crime bill, in 96, a law was passed, and they tied it into like welfare to work. And so what it also said was, if you were convicted of a drug felony, then you would have a lifetime ban of food assistance in North Carolina. So if it was class G or higher, it was a lifetime ban. If it was class H or I, then you would have a 6-month ban. And then after 6 months, you would be able to reapply and be awarded the food stamps. H and I is kind of like minor possession. And G and higher would be like possession with some form of distribution, right? All the way through trafficking or whatnot. One of the key things to note about this too is that many people have served on the H and I. They've served that 6-month suspension multiple times for the same conviction. So let me give you an example. Let's say in 2000, I'm convicted of a class H drug felony, and I'm placed on probation. All right. So then I lose my, if I wasn't receiving food stamps, then I go apply. I have to wait 6 months. All right. So then let's say in 2004, I get a separate conviction for something else, and I go to prison. So now I get out a year later, 2005. I'm just getting out of prison. I really could benefit from the food assistance. Be one less thing to have to worry about as I'm trying to pick the pieces up and move forward in my life. And I go to apply, and they say, oh, we see you have this 2000 class H conviction, so you have to wait 6 months. Well, I've already waited those 6 months. Doesn't matter. They're going to see that and make you wait the 6 months again. So people have served that same 6-month ban multiple times on the same conviction. And I'm highlighting that to say even the system they have in place is inefficient as it goes to administering this policy. Also, it's discriminatory in nature because you're only targeting drug felons. The majority of people who even catch kind of drug felony charges, and I think all across the political spectrum, people are understanding this now. They have an issue with addiction and chemical dependency. And so there is beginning to be more movement towards treatment, less punishment by incarceration and all these different things. But this SNAP felony ban still remains in place. And people could benefit from receiving that assistance. Now, once you're working, you're not taxed at a different rate than anybody else. And we know it's tax dollars that go to pay for these programs. So they're actually taking folk tax dollars, putting it towards a program that they also tell those people they do not qualify for if they need to benefit from that program. I speak from this personally because I do have a drug felony conviction that gives me a lifetime ban. Also, part of this law is if you come from any other state with a drug felony, no matter what level, you get a lifetime ban. So if you had a drug felony conviction in Florida, and then you relocate to North Carolina, you get a lifetime ban, and you will not be able to receive food stamps. And that's bad because oftentimes we kind of hear about wanting to attract businesses to the state and want people to conduct business here, which means they need more employees, and also wanting people to come here to live and different things like that. So we just continue to work to organize around this cause. And I think that right now, the majority in the legislature is Republican. So in order to get this as a bill and to get them to remove the ban, you're going to need a Republican to sponsor it, or at least co-sponsor it, so it can be brought to the floor for a vote. And so that's some of the things we're up against now. I think about like if you're not providing these things, you kind of, if you're the state and the carceral system, you're helping to create a repeat customer, which is probably by design, right? So folk get out, they can't get assistance, they can't kind of put their best foot forward. The chances of them recidivating and returning to prison are increased drastically. And we know 94 crime bill, those things cause incarceration rates to blow up 300 and 400%, which ultimately created a lot of incentive wage labor, or this extension of slavery, if you will, in the prison system. Because that's what happens. I was in prison myself for 6 years, and I'm telling you, a lot of the people I met with 7-year, 8-year, 10-year habitual felon sentences were people who had got caught with very small amounts of narcotics on multiple times. And so if you keep catching me with 2 grams of crack, am I a kingpin or do I smoke dope? And if I am smoking, then I probably could benefit from treatment and things to that effect more than 8 years in your prison, working on your road squad and in your kitchen and in your laundry. And so it's just, someone was mentioning earlier, it's just a human rights type of issue. It's a dignity issue. And so this is just to kind of piggyback and tag along with the other things going on, but something else we need to repeal and have removed here in North Carolina.
Yes, sir, brother. And I appreciate that. Was you lay that out so good. Like, and it just got me to thinking, because I'm always telling people, I remember when I came home from federal prison in 2019, I went to the social service. I was trying to get food stamps. The only thing I got out of the social service was a pair of eyeglasses, a voucher to go get a pair of eyeglasses. They told me because I had my felony drug conviction, I couldn't get food stamps. Then as I began to do this work, I began to do a lot of advocating and things like that. And I'm a law-abiding citizen. I go to work, I pay taxes, I do all of those things. That's when I began to, because prior to me coming home from prison, I never in my life had a job. I've always been in the streets. I've never been in society. This is the longest I've been in society without real fit. I've never been in society a year straight since 1990 without being on some type of probation, parole, on the run, you know, in the streets, selling drugs, doing this, doing that. I've never paid attention to some of this stuff. So as I began to study and learn about this work and being in the space and advocating, I realized, damn, I'm paying taxes, and the taxes that I pay go towards SNAP benefits. But I can't get food stamps though. That don't make sense to me. You see what I'm saying? Like, and it's just all the system that's set up by design. And you saying I was in the federal system with so many brothers that were addicted to crack. I don't like to call them crackheads. They had addictions. They were addicted to crack. They were street low-level crack users, but they were sitting in federal prison with 25, 30 years and life sentences, you know, because of the laws that were created, because of these career criminals, armed career criminals, and the language that they use to define violence. All of this stuff plays a part in the war on drugs, because that's where they were getting their definitions of how they was going to be able to create some of these laws and utilize the words that they were going to use to create these laws based off of our so-called behavior, what they deem to be this or what they deem to be that. And that goes back to what you said. It has to start at the General Assembly. It has to start at the General Assembly. And this is what these conversations are supposed to be about, is for us to be able to bring awareness to the community, because a lot of the information don't reach them the way it should. And it's our job as agents of change to be able to make sure that information get to them as best as possible. And some of those ways is through social media, through YouTube, through whatever platform that we will speak upon. I mean, we utilize. But that was powerful, brother. I appreciate that, man. And a lot of people need to be able to just sit back and think about what's the state of America today, you know, and the state of us, and why we keep having conversations about war on drugs and unlocking our vote, and because it's a cultural mindset that these people have when it comes to dealing with us. And until we as a people recognize that, then we're going to constantly be having these conversations, man. And I, for one, am tired of talking. You know, I don't have no problem with expressing myself because I express myself from passion and pain. You know, Dennis Gotti told me last time I seen him, his seas of life has been watered through his tears of pain. And it didn't dawn on me until I continue to do this work. And I know what it feels like to sit in prison, to be sitting in there with 22 years for distribution of 5 grams of crack, and sit in front of the TV and let these people tell me they made a mistake when they created the 100-to-1 crack cocaine ratio law. But I'm sitting my black behind in somebody's prison, you know, feeling like I ain't never going home because of the treatment that we receiving in there. It's a whole lot of things. Thank you for that, brother. So now we'll be moving on. We'll be discussing, our next discussion will be on repealing the North Carolina drug tax, which is something, man, that when you think about this law right here and this statute, man, it's just plain and simple and unjust. I would say that for the sake of this call, you know. So for those who don't know, the North Carolina, the unauthorized substance tax, which is the North Carolina drugs tax, is a tax on possession of certain drugs. The law requires people in possession of a certain amount of drugs to purchase stamps to place the stamps permanently on the substance. So what they're saying is, in essence, if you come into possession of any type of illegal substance, you got, 48 hours to go to the Department of Revenue and tell them that you want to get a cocaine stamp or a marijuana stamp or a heroin stamp to put on your drugs in the event that you get caught with it, that they don't tax you. Now, here's the thing for people, they say, you know, people not going to go and do that anyway, but they're not supposed to alert the authorities if you come and purchase this stamp. By law, it's a misdemeanor conviction for them if they alert the authorities. But hey, you know, they got confidential informants everywhere. They got them on the streets. I know they got them inside the office. So I already know we're not trusting none of that. But yeah, you're supposed to go get that. And if you don't, then you're going to be taxed a substantial amount of money if you get caught with a certain amount of drugs, and depending on the drugs. Almost no one besides stamp collectors actually purchase these stamps. Most people either don't know the stamps exist or they are wary about giving that information to the Department of Revenue. As a result of the scheme, over 4,000 people annually on average are exposed to thousands of back taxes, interest, and penalties. The average assessed drug tax is $8,872, but some end up on up to $5 million. This drug tax is a child of the war on drugs. I'm gonna say it's a child because that child is still producing harm and still creating things that's tearing our community apart. I know we've interviewed several people and that has this drug tax, and we heard stories where people where the police went in the house, got pounds of weed out the house. There's 4 people in the house. Everybody go to jail. One person take the charge. Other 3 people charges get dropped. But all 4 of those people owe taxes on that marijuana. Everybody owe at least $5,000 to $10,000 a piece on that marijuana that was in the house. Even though those charges were dismissed or they was found not guilty, they still have to pay taxes. That's just one thing. You know, we have issues where people, task forces is pulled up on people with the police and taking cars as they coming out of their house, getting ready to get in their car. The people out there snatching up their vehicles because they say they owe drug tax money. These people then went to prison. They didn't serve their life. They didn't pay with the most valuable asset that they possess, which is their time. And that's another thing that they figured out. The system figured out how to utilize time as a tool and a weapon to be able to continue to put us in these places, to be able to continue to put us behind the 8 ball with laws like the drug tax. Like most features of the war on drugs, the drug tax disproportionately harms low-income communities and communities of color communities of color that are routinely over-policed and under-resourced. Let's talk about that right there, because if 75% of the money that comes from a drug arrest goes back to the law enforcement agency that made the arrest, then quite naturally, the logical thing to do is to go to the place where we know that we assume that it's a high concentration of drugs, an area where we then labeled around the whole world that this community is a drug and violent infested community. So we're going to over police the community, even though the white community does drugs at the same rate, if not more. So you're going to over police us, knowing that when you catch us with drugs, you want to get not just court cost, fines, and fees from out my pocket, but drug tax money on the back end too. Right? That's over policing. And you're doing this in a community that's already what? Under-resourced. So you got a community of people that's already under-resourced. There's lack of opportunities. You already then deemed and labeled this community violent and drug infested. Why would you go in there and continue to put them behind the 8 ball with drug laws, drug tax laws? So now when they finally get themselves together, they finally say, you know what, I want to live my life. I want to live a righteous lifestyle. I want to live a law-abiding citizen lifestyle. And I want to get myself together. And now I'm back on my feet. I'm trying to buy a house. I'm trying to do all of these things. I haven't committed a crime in 4 or 5 years. And I'm feeling good about myself. And before you know it, everything I done worked hard for over the 4 or 5 past years has been snatched away from me, taken away from me. Because they say I owe money on a crime that I done went and did my life for. This is the reality that we deal with and we live with in our community. Not the people that sit up there at the General Assembly, that sit in them chairs with them gavels and them pens and that paper and talking about making laws and decisions for us. You don't know what it feels like to come home from prison and work your tail off and transform your mindset from a criminal mind thinking to a law-abiding citizen thinking person. And I work my ass off, and you come and take everything I didn't work for because you say I owe you taxes for some drugs that I didn't went and did time for in prison? Man, y'all tripping, man. There's no need to discuss that no further because that's a complete miscarriage of justice and injustice within itself. What are we talking about? What more do we need to talk about? That picture I just painted shouldn't be no more. It should be no opposition to that. Just that picture alone should make these people do away with this law, because you have a lot of strong brothers and sisters that come home from prison. We have a video of a sister who makes minimum wages. Excuse me. Yeah, they have a sister. We have a sister who was incarcerated, served her time, single mother, come home, she's working. One day, her employer tells her, we have to start taking half of your paycheck. She have 3 children. Why do you have to take half of my paycheck? The Department of Revenue said you owe money for drug tax. This woman owe $100,000. $100,000. She done been in prison. She done her time. She done completed probation. She's working. She's trying to get herself together. She's got 3 children. Then, on top of taking half of her wages, they take her whole income tax check at the end of the year. Again, a single Black mother living in a community that's under-resourced and over-policed. She can't even go get food stamps because the SNAP ban won't allow her to. Good things that she's still trying to push on. because that is the way the system is designed. And that's a complete picture to show you that the system is designed to keep her exactly where they want her to be, suppressed, depressed, because she can't feel like she can't get ahead, for her to go out here and make decisions to keep her behind. That's what this system do. That's what the war on drugs was created for. It wasn't no, this wasn't no coincidence that these laws was.
It really supposed to be the war on Black people, but they didn't want to put that out there.
That's right.
War on drugs.
Yes, it was a war on us. And we have thousands, millions of stories like this. So what this is telling me, if we have to continue to ask for you to do right, then, and you don't do right, then what you're showing me and you showing us is that it's in your heart. It's in your culture to continue to create laws that do what you know is doing to us, because the numbers don't lie. We see it every day. Right here in Wilmington, North Carolina, the Wilmington Police Department took $40,000 in drug tax money and want to create a museum in the Wilmington Police Department under the guise that it want to bridge the gap with the Black community. Ain't no damn body Black going in no police department talking about looking at no artifacts or no police stuff, man. What you gonna have? You gonna show the artifacts of where y'all done killed us? You gonna show the artifacts of the officers? You gonna put the officers on display that said that they was gonna kill Black people around here? You gonna put their pictures on display too? You gonna show the good, the bad, and the ugly? No, you're not. So the city of Wilmington agrees to give this police chief this money to fund drug tax money to fund a museum. When I go to these people, I ask these people, you can put this money back in, invest this money back into the community. It comes out of the community. You already know it's underfunded, it's under resources. $40,000 can go a long way in the community. We got a football team here that goes to the Part 1 of Super Bowl every year. They need $30,000, $40,000 every year. Give them the money. You say you want to help Black youth stay off the streets. What better way to put it into a positive program than giving it to the Part 1 of Football League, where you got a football team of young Black African-American men who the system say 1 in 3 of them gonna end up in the prison system some type of way because of the war on drugs. The war on drugs states that 1 in 3 of those young Black kids that's on that football team will end up in the carceral system. That's just statistics. That's what data shows. And this is what we're dealing with. This is what these community discussions need to be about, y'all. I apologize for going on a rant, you know, and it's the thing. Here's the thing about politicians. Something I learned from Dr. Reverend Barber. When he went to talking about the Constitution, I went and started reading the North Carolina Constitution. And it showed me that a lot of things, we the people give them that power. We the people have the ability to take the power away. Them city councilmen sat up there in a public meeting and agreed to give that man $5,000 per team, which is 4 teams, to keep them from having to hit a public talk to them about giving that police chief the $40,000. So they agreed to give the police chief the $40,000, but they also agreed to give that man $5,000 per team, 2 city councilmen. Do you know last week that man wrote a check for $150? You're gonna give the Wilmington Police Department $40,000 of our money, the money that we worked hard for, and you gave that to the city police chief to build a Wilmington artifact museum, but you're gonna write a check for $150 for a team of 160 kids. And they're in Florida right now. They just won 3rd place in the Part 1 of Super Bowl Nationals. This is a young group of individuals, Black young individuals that the city say they don't want to turn wrong, and they got all this money, but you won't do nothing. You lying.
Hey, Daquan, this is Daniel. Do you mind if I make a note about something that Governor Cooper, how he made this whole situation worse?
Yes, sir. Please do, my brother.
So, I don't say this lightly, but for years, Governor Cooper's tried to say that, I care about reentry and I want to be fair, and yet there is no politician in North Carolina today who is more responsible for mass incarceration than Governor Rory Cooper. And, part of that is a fact that he is the last of a generation in some sense. But the other part of it is that he's the son of a prosecutor who has been a prosecutor himself. And so, hasn't seen people truly sort of doing their best and just being in bad circumstance and having no good choices, or 100 or 1,000 other situations that you sort of have to be in the thick of it to understand and to see. And so the big point is that he is, based on his record and based on his upbringing, he's really not predisposed to listen to what we're saying. He thinks that he is doing the right thing. Also, the politics support him and say that, at least from a political perspective, he is doing the right thing. He's the most popular political official in North Carolina and has been for a while. And so that's why, it's up to us to speak our truth and to say, okay, you're popular, so doesn't mean you're not wrong, and that you're not hurting people, and really sort of stick it that way, because it's just not going to change unless we do. And specifically with the drug tax, that was a tax that Governor Cooper defended when he was Attorney General against an attack, and he actually lost the case because the taxes were so egregious, and for all the reasons that Daquan explained, but they were so high, they were so much higher back then that they actually found it unconstitutional, and so they sort of messed with the law again and lowered it slightly. But you still see the same harmful impact that really, again, sort of doesn't help anybody and actually incentivizes people not to leave prison and go on the straight and narrow. So I'll stop there, but just my main point is just that Governor Cooper, throughout his career, 30-year career, did a lot to sort of build these vestiges that we still see harming people now. And so we really have to get past this image of benevolence. This is his duty to fix what he messed up in the first place, along with many others. It truly is bipartisan. So I'll stop there.
All right, thank you, Dan. You appreciate that, and that's we needed to hear that. That's what we needed to hear, and to highlight again that Daniel is out at the Vigil for Freedom and Racial Justice right now, and Raleigh at the mansion, the governor's mansion. It's a lot of people out here fighting on the front lines, man, and I know sometimes for me, I get frustrated, I get angry, I get every emotion that you could think of when it comes to this work, because I often find myself feel like I'm begging. I've always been a poor beggar and a hell of a hustler. So I take that drive that I had in the streets, I take that mindset that I had in the streets, and I apply it to this. That's just how I survive. I applied to this right here. And when I apply to this, I don't see no different people. I see worse people in this space than I did in dealing in the prison and in the streets. And they want to call us the bad ones. And they want to say the bad, harmful things about us, but just seeing it, look at the work, look at their track record. Look at the things like Daniel said, bro. Governor Cooper is the governor. You champion these type of things. It's in a person's heart, and it's in their heart and in their culture. This is a cultural mindset that we're dealing with, y'all. This is just people just need to wake up and realize that no matter how much we do, it's in their hearts. What we got to stop doing is stop them from breeding. That's my mission. My mission is to stop them from breeding. Because if they continue to breed that cultural mindset and that deceit and that hate in their heart, then it's going to continue to be what it's going to be. Tim, you got some questions you want to ask, brother?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Daquan, Brent, Muffin. This was great. Yeah, with the last 10 minutes of this conversation, we wanted to open up to the participants. If you're comfortable, you can come off mute, even pop your camera on if you want. But we want to kind of ask some questions to kind of have some stimulate these conversations. But the first question we have is, do you know anyone whose life has been affected by the war on drugs? And so if anyone in the chat wants to pop off of mute and share, if you're comfortable, we would love to hear from you.
I know somebody on here, then somebody I know ain't no way y'all gonna sit on here and now I know our audience, right? Now see, I know the audience, you know, when you're speaking, you have to be speaking to a particular audience. Now, you mean to tell me I can't see, let me go on here and see if I can see some faces, man, because you ain't gonna tell me we ain't gonna know nobody on this call who ain't been affected by the war on drugs, man. You can be white too now. Let me say that. No offense. You can be a white person and be affected by the war on drugs. Let's say that.
I'm 6 years sober now, so I definitely know how that goes. But I also I'm so aware that because I'm a white middle class woman, like my addiction was treated as a medical condition in the way it isn't for other communities. And I think it's just heartbreaking to see people going through the same things that I went through without the advantages and just being kicked down by the system. And because recovery is hard. It is so hard. And it's hard when you have resources. And it's just really frustrating for me.
Yes, I can relate. Me myself, I watched my mother battle with addiction. So crack didn't skip my household. You know, I watched my family deal with an addiction. That's another thing where people don't understand about some people sold drugs for survival. That's not making an excuse. But when you walk out your door and you don't see some of the things you see in some other neighborhoods, and I don't want to just call things out, but y'all know what I mean. When I walk out my door, I didn't see anything positive, I would say. And in our community, here's the thing about our community. In our community, the people that get the law degrees, they leave, they don't come back and teach the younger kids how they struggle to become lawyers. So they can see that as a Black person, they can be lawyer. You have people that do it, but you don't have a great majority of them. And I'm thankful at this age to be able to be working with those type of people now, because now I finally met people that do that. But it's not a great majority of people that become doctors or dentists or all of these other professionals. They don't, that come from our community, that struggled and made it out. They don't go back and show them anything else. They leave and get their life on. So once those type of people is removed, the only people that are there for you to emulate are the ones that you see struggling like you and trying to get out of that hellhole. So for me, that's what took me into to drugs, selling drugs, because I did it for survival. You know, I seen my mother get kicked out the projects and couldn't pay the project rent. You know what I mean? I seen my mother couldn't pay Section 8 rent. You know, so I had to be a man child before my time. That wasn't by choice. That was by force. That doesn't make me a violent, the worst type of person in the world. I'm here on this call with y'all today, and I'm talking about rebuilding. I'm talking about doing some things that back to the people that did it to me, you know, and that's just what it is.
Hey, Muffin, I see you have your hand raised if you would like to contribute.
Oh yes, I was. I apologize, y'all. I ain't got my glasses either. So, Brother Daquan, I feel you when you can't see something, right? But I was gonna answer the question of yes, the '94 crime bill, the war on drugs has affected people that I love personally. You know, I have
family that spent 23 years of their life incarcerated because of the war on drugs. But when we look at why people sell drugs or use drugs, there's something missing. When people use drugs, they're missing something and they're trying to numb the pain by using the drug, right? So if we don't give them the mental health services that they need, then we'll continue to have that cycle. People sell drugs because they're lacking something. They're either lacking housing, they're lacking food, they're lacking clothing, they're lacking something. And so they sell drugs to get the money they need to just survive. And so we're punishing people for surviving, but we put them in these conditions where it's either you survive or you die, and then we punish them for surviving. So why do we punish them for surviving? We should award them for surviving and thriving, because some of the greatest minds are incarcerated. Some of the greatest people are incarcerated. There's so much talent that is behind a wall because white men in America are scared of the power that those individuals have collectively. It's amazing of the things that people that are incarcerated can do. I've gotten so many pictures that were drawn with a pencil from people that were incarcerated. I've had pocketbooks made for me for people that was incarcerated, poems, music, all of those things from people who are incarcerated, and that talent they have is being caged up. So we definitely need to uncage all the folks who are in prison, because, especially because of drugs. Like whether they were drug users or drug sellers, they need to be free. Period.
That's a fact.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Muffin. I know we're coming up near the end of this, but I wanted to launch one more poll, because I know when we get into these conversations, it can get kind of depressing and get frustrating because it feels like an uphill battle. And so I'm going to launch this poll of what are some ways that you are willing to support local advocacy efforts in North Carolina that can span from even signing a petition to calling your legislator. It just helps us if we ever want to reach out to you with upcoming legislation next year. We're going to try to get that drug tax repealed. We're going to try to do a lot more. So this will help us kind of see what people in this call are willing to do and willing to help us out with. So if you can answer that, that'd be great. I wanted to thank you guys for this conversation, but like I think we can put in the chat, we have our next community conversation on Tuesday. We have it on the 13th about talking about the intersection between immigration and the criminal justice system. So anyone who's on the call, we want to thank you for joining us. I know we always love going over on these things, and so I wanted to keep us keep our time. But I want to thank our speakers, Daquan, Brent, Muffin. Thank you guys so much for joining us, all our participants. Thank you guys.
Thank you for allowing me to share.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. I will see you all Tuesday. Have a great one, everybody.